I want to start by saying thanks to the organizers for putting together something as wonderful as this. And thanks especially for the opportunity to express my gratitude and much more towards my Rebbe, as you hear. I'm speaking in English. I had dinner in a restaurant in Yerushalayim with a professor from Bar Ilan, and they asked, a little more? They asked, would you like menus in Hebrew or English? And he said, give him Aramaic. Later in that meal, I needed a knife, and I asked for a ma'achelis. So my wife just told Yitzi that she understood about 60% of the Hebrew. I said I understood 60% of each word. So, but this conference, I wanted so much to get more than I did. I got a lot from being here and from hearing you. But I think you put me over the top. I think it's time to, I've been coming here for many years, learning in the summer, but never spent the time to do the language right. But, I'm still young. Okay. Yesterday, Rav Meir gave me a challenge, welcome challenge, that I come from the place Rav Lichtenstein came from, and maybe I could make more intelligible to Israelis how to make sense of him, of these aspects of who he was. Deeply, deeply religious, deeply, deeply committed, and deeply humanistic. And I guess that doesn't make a lot of sense in a certain way. They can't put it together. Now, I didn't think of that as what I was going to try to talk about. But yesterday, the last session, I was thinking about it because I thought, wow, this is interesting. What Shlomo Dov Rosen did was to compare Rav Lichtenstein to Milton. And Milton seemed crazy at first, and I have to think about it a lot more, but wow. So he described Milton as being 100% committed to the doctrine of the church and 100% committed to humanism. And the sort of human paradox of putting those together, what a challenge, okay? It reminded me of Avraham Avinu, who's 100% trusting and there for God, and 100% loving, you'd say, and 100% loving to his son. Makes for an interesting story, right? How do you put those together? And it's kind of easy to see, I think, how someone who, I don't see it as strange, right? But I could get it, I guess, because how do you bring your commitment to doctrine and to thinking in terms of the tradition into contact with this very humanistic stuff that we used to breathe in America, right? Okay, so I think that helped a little. You'll tell me whether you think so, but it was very interesting, I thought. The reason it's not a challenge for me is because your faith can come to encompass all of it, and you can see as a virtue of your faith, the humanism as well as the rest of it. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to talk about my experience with Rav Lichtenstein. When I think about the Shir in 1964, I picture myself back there, and I picture him there. Now, who are we? Well, I'm this, and he was the picture that was up here at the beginning. By the way, I was going to one other thing I just forgot to say. I wanted to say how inspiring it is to see the family here. And to one of the highlights of coming to Israel every summer is getting to spend a little time with Dr. Tova Lichtenstein. And this is an overwhelming business here. So I was 20 or 21. He was 30 or 31. I thought he was an old sage, right? We asked him, the fellows in the shir, to do a mussar shmooze once a week. And we had mixed motives, I admit. We wanted to slow him down a little because who could keep up? But we were also, of course, very interested. I actually learned a new skill, which is, I've used it ever since, which is how to take notes when you don't follow. And you construct the understanding afterwards. I had to do that quite a bit, but it was worth it. It was great. He told me he couldn't do a mussar shmooze because he wasn't old enough. I thought that was excessive humility, but when I turned 30, I got it. Okay, I entered the shir in my senior year of college. I came from no background at all. I had a kind of Woody Allen-ish Talmud Torah background, right? I mean it. I could barely pronounce Hebrew words without having any idea what they meant. And I was a mess in high school. My father was a basketball coach at YU High School and thought it would straighten me out to go there. So I did, thinking I'll spend a year and then maybe I'll go somewhere else. And the minute I got on campus, I came home. It was like an amazing feeling. I'd never been exposed to serious religion before. This was the 60s, and the teachers were, Rabbi Moshe Bezdin was running your kind of program. He was an amazing educator, and he taught us Tanakh, or Chumash, and he loved good questions. I had a lot of questions because I had no knowledge of anything. And I had a lot of, I was always a spiritual kind of kid, but believing these things, that's a different story. What do you do with that? And it actually led me to philosophy. I used to spend many hours, evenings in the dormitory, talking through issues about why you should believe this and why you should believe that. So I worked hard for 3 years in this preparatory program. I learned a lot. I had tremendous help from various people, older yeshiva students who were happy to pitch in. It was really quite a great community, I thought. By the end of the third year, I was ready to move on. And I was in Rav Lichtenstein's, I believe, his first year. It was a freshman year for college students, but that doesn't explain the level. I mean, it was Rav Lichtenstein thinking about stuff, and it was amazing. And I'll never forget the first day I got there. I had prepared the text, and then we talked it through, and I saw that he asked a question, and I thought, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to learn how to think. And it was quite amazing. I feel like I learned how to think from him. I learned how to think sort of Gemara-wise, but I also learned how to think, period. And, in an odd way, it gives me a leg up on my future colleagues who learned how to think in college or graduate school. I learned how to think from a moral exemplar and from a man of great spiritual, I don't know how to say it, but you know what I mean. So that was really quite amazing. And I stayed with him for 2 years. I was a senior, but I spread out college over a year so I could do a further year so I could do this. And these were 2 of the richest years of my life. It was quite amazing. I'm thinking about the shir. I wish I don't have to take you back there, some of you, because you've been with him. But it was quite amazing to watch the way he dealt with the students, the way he respected them, the way he criticized them when he had to. I remember one thing he loved to say, or at least a few times said it, and it struck me that this is paradigm teaching. He looked at someone and said, "You're right and I was wrong." Now, I don't know if you've come across such things in universities. It doesn't happen that much. And it was really quite amazing. There was a lot of love there in his own way. Okay, so I spent 2 years. I remember just an incident. We were learning, in the middle of a shiur, I hear somebody scream, "Steich!" And I had no idea what that was, and I looked around, and it scared me. And then somebody told me it was the Rebbe saying, "Vus ist Teich?" I don't know if that will strike you as so funny, but it was very strange. There were a million incidents, like, I once asked him, "Would you mind if I learned not in the base medrash because it's too noisy?" Now, if you come from the life, you don't think that, you don't say that, you're used to it. But I wasn't used to it, and he said, "Of course, go. It's great." We came to him with a couple of friends with an idea of learning another thing on the side, and he was so encouraging. It was just like, this is what he wanted. After 2 years with him, and by the way, one of the great gifts was to bring us to the point that we could question his own approach. Right. Also not in academia a favored thing. Right. So for example, by the end of the second year, I thought maybe I was starting to see limitations with the brisker derech. And there was no question that these distinctions that were made had great utility. They explained a lot of things that otherwise remained unexplained. But I couldn't wrap my head around the distinctions themselves. So for example, Isur Hefza and Isur Gavra, right? Is it forbidden to eat it because of are you being told don't do it? Or is it because of a property of the thing? Okay, and that explains a lot of stuff. But what does it mean? Is it metaphysics? Are you telling me there's a property in the thing I couldn't wrap my mind around it. And I hoped it wasn't metaphysics, but it was metaphysics, by which I mean properties in the thing or in me. I thought it was some kind of more legal distinction, but then it needs a lot more explanation. I didn't get it, and I couldn't get a hold of it. It reminds me, as I thought about it later on, of sort of Plato and Aristotle. So here's what I mean. Plato posits things like his ideas. And in terms of his posits, explain a lot of stuff in the world. And Aristotle asks, but what does it mean? What are those things you're positing? So I think, the richness of what I was exposed to, including the questions and everything, was really quite something. Okay. I only have 5 minutes? Where'd the time go? In 1990, I came to a conference, a philosophy conference in Tel Aviv in Jerusalem in honor of a great scholar at UCLA. And it's the first time 20 years I hadn't seen Rav Lichtenstein, and I called him and I said, can I get to talk to you? Oh, I didn't tell you about our wedding. Okay, I had left yeshiva. I didn't come from a religious world, so my questioning of these things was big because am I going to leave the life? What am I going to do? Okay, so, there's so much I didn't tell you. This is 5 minutes. I'm going to speak fast. I spent the summer after my second senior year teaching in a kollel at Camp Marasha, which was YU's camp. I don't know if it still is or not. I was teaching Talmud I was among the Rabbeim, which is not a term I self-apply very much, okay? But I was teaching Torah and playing bad basketball in the afternoons. And at night, somehow my religious doubts were creeping in. Somehow it arises, it happens at times. Something in your life will grab you. And I could tell you more about it, but I was really grabbed. And I would spend every evening wandering around the camp, thinking through these questions. And I have a friend in philosophy who says that it helps to be obsessive compulsive in philosophy, right? Because you have to think through these things about 1,000 times to get it straight. By the end of the summer, I couldn't go on. I couldn't spend a life teaching as much as I'd love to because the fundamentals are not there for me. And for 25 years, I left the life and then came back to it, which is another long story. But I left the life, and my wife, who's here, grew up in a modern Orthodox family. She didn't leave anything. And so we decided eventually to get married, even though it was kind of mixed. And who's going to be our Masada Kedushin? So there was a likely person, but he didn't like me because I had left. So I wanted to ask my Rebbe, of course, but I was very anxious doing that because here I am now an outsider, right? And I don't want to embarrass him. So I had my friend, some of you know him, Yitzchak Frank, ask the Rebbe for me, and he said he'd love to. And I was shocked. And he said he'd like to know if you'd like him to speak under the chuppah. And I didn't know what to make of that. What do you say to an ex-student in this way? So I said, of course, right? And he spoke under the chuppah, and I fell apart because he spoke about the rationality of marriage as a social institution. No, I'm not kidding. I started to shake, and Barbara wanted to know what's wrong. But there was nothing wrong. I was just so moved. There was such love to make contact in that sort of way. So deeply religious in a way that a lot of people wouldn't recognize. I'll quickly tell you a couple more stories. Let me see where I am. It'll take me 2 minutes to recover, I think. I have to finish, so I'll leave some things out, and it doesn't matter. I just want to, there's an academic joke that goes this way. So much for my book, so much for my work. What do you think about my book? Right? That's the opposite of what I was exposed to in yeshiva. Not everybody had the same yeshiva experience I did, but I was just blessed. It was just amazing. And the sense of community and caring about one another and learning together. I have often thought, what would it be like in philosophy or academia if we danced together to celebrate our learning? The world is so different. So I'm an academic in a sense. I never have been really in love with it. It's afforded me to do things like teach kids, and I just love doing that. And it afforded me the opportunity to try to do for some of them some of what Rav Lichtenstein did for me. And I'll be eternally grateful for that. So thank you, everybody.